What's up, everybody? Story time today. Flashback Friday. I want to talk about the origins of Art of Failure, AOF. A lot of you might remember a band that I helped create. Just going to give some backstory on it and shed some light on a lot of the stuff that went on, why it disbanded. From drugs, partying, to some of the great music that we made, the crowds that we had. I'll show some clips. I know you guys have probably seen them before. But, so I want to talk about when it all kind of, throughout my junior high and throughout my high school, I played as a guitarist and vocalist with different drummers. I never really had a bass player and a drummer or a band at the, all at the same time. And so I played with a guy named Zach in high school. Prior to that was Terry Schramm, good friend from back in the day. I don't talk to him much anymore. Hope you're doing well out there, brother. But yeah, we would just play in my parents' garage. We did little tiny shows for friends and family, stuff like that. And I always knew I wanted to have a band, but I always saw myself as a frontman, as just the singing mic, rocking out with the band backing, and us writing original material, and obviously doing covers and stuff like that. But so 2005, 2006, junior, senior year of high school, about to graduate, and I get with a guy named Matt Grooms. You guys probably know him, Alan Grooms' brother. I still play with Alan today. And we started taking it pretty serious. Like, we got to do something with this, man. We started actually coming up with some ideas that sounded cool. And after that, we needed a bass player. So we're like, fuck, man, go online. Got to start. Back then it was MySpace. This is 2007, 2008. Me and Matt were hanging out. We were partying a little bit and just jamming around in garages and, having fun with it. And then this guy, James Hamilton, a.k.a. Bub, reached out and said, hey, man, I got a studio I've been building. It's here in Mount Orb. It was close to home. We're like, fuck yeah, let's go check this out. So me and Matt, we drive over one day. We just got done practicing in my garage. We're like, dude, we're kind of fucking excited about this. And could this actually work? And we get pulling the driveway, and here comes Bub walking out. Me and Matt's like, all right, man, here we go. We got to introduce ourselves. This guy's got a fucking legitimate studio, and we have potential to actually record and make some shit here, make it happen, and a bass player. So yeah, in the midst of it, we're kind of thinking, let's take advantage of this, but at the same time, we're like, dude, we could make a really good friend here, a really good acquaintance, whatever it was at the time. And so we jammed around a bit, and then I immediately felt at home. I'm like, this is where I need to be. I need to be in this studio. I need to work with this guy. I need to get to know him. And sure enough, as I'll tell the story, this goes on down the line of how me and Bub grew closer and closer, and how Matt and I ended up separating a little bit. Matt and I, we were good friends. He had his own way of thinking just like I do, and we just eventually went separate ways. Some stupid shit got involved with this. We were partying too much, probably, just graduating high school. Two of my closest friends had died. It's a story for another time. I know a lot of you know that. And it was just emotional chaos. But I knew where I wanted to be. I wanted to be in a fucking studio writing everything that I was feeling. And so Matt kind of goes his own way, but me and Bub stayed close, and I'm in that studio all the time. Now we don't have a drummer. We have a guitar player, singer, bass player, two guys. What do? Well, his friend at the time, Brendan Wilkin, he comes and shows up one day, and Bub's like, let's give this a try. Let's see what happens. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? So, Bub, Brendan, aka Fatty, and myself, we get into the studio. I don't really have very good memories of how it all kind of came together, but I think it was just a few jam sessions, just a few, I don't know, just testing the waters, feeling it out a little bit, and it felt right. It felt good. So shortly after that, we're tracking stuff. Bub has it all set up. He's invested all this money in the studio, and we're like, we gotta make an album. We gotta just do the damn thing and start writing songs. I know one day I came in and I just started playing a riff. It was called Snakes. I'd written, and literally those two guys just started falling in and playing, and just Snakes came out. And we realized how fast we could write a song. So then I decided, I was like, let's get a fucking whiteboard, stand it up in the room, start writing everything down. Each song, memorize, rehearse, practice, create together. We had Habits, Numb, Snakes, Lonely Drive, Victim, which would become two that we go and record later down in Arkansas with John LeCompte from Evanescence and Phil Taylor, which is a crazy story. To get away from that story for a second, I reached out via MySpace at the time, seen where Phil Taylor, who's the Future Leaders of the World, had a hell of an album that came out in '04. I was obsessed with that album. Well, in like 2007, I reached out to him like, hey man, check my shit out. And Phil messaged me back, and next thing you know, we're in Arkansas recording a fucking demo. And I'm still friends with Phil to this day. I still talk to him. He's doing a lot of crazy shit around the world and stuff. But anyways, back to AOF. It gets going. We're fucking rocking. We're like, we got a set of 10 songs that are all original and a few covers that we throw in. We're like, we gotta just start pushing on MySpace. Up to the point where we never really even had an Art of Failure Facebook page. We had our personal pages, but Facebook wasn't really as huge as it is now, obviously. But it was another way to reach people. And then there was things like Reverb Nation we put our songs on, and just any way to get the music out. But it was all word of mouth back then. It was all paper flyers hanging up wherever you could hang them, wherever you're playing, the venues, messaging people, texting them. And I didn't even get text until like 2009. And the only reason I did was because, well, back then I was like, well, this is how we spread the word on shows. This is how we get people there. And so that's how it worked out. And we're playing shows. We're opening for major label bands. I think Skin Dread, Evans Blue, Days of the New, Reigns at the time was a pretty big band that was coming out. And had a blast for 3 years. Now, in the midst of those 3 years, I was going through hell. And I think Brendan was too, and Bub. And then the recession hit, you know, right around 2008 as things were really getting going. And I was doing side work, obviously, with my dad, still working in the concrete business, and things they were rough. And then, not to mention, I'm hooked on every fucking drug out there and drinking myself into an oblivion. And Bub always took care of me, and he let me live in that studio. He always checked on me. He never questioned anything. He knew what was going on. I was in a downward spiral. My ego was inflated. I was playing shows, and 50 people would show up in Dayton. Like, they would drive 2 hours away to come see us, and I mean, it didn't seem that big, but in our heads at the time, or I guess it wasn't that big, but in our heads at the time, it was huge for people to come and spend their money and drive 2 hours to come see you. And this is all with no social media, really, not like it is today. This is 11, 12 years ago now. And so anyways, we, through a 3-year period, had written songs, recorded songs, went to the workshop in Chillicothe, Masseyville up there, recording workshop. I was fortunate enough for 12 years of my life to work with Derek Dixie, who would become Beyonce's director of music, and Brian Brody, a true dear friend of mine, who allowed me to come in and record, constantly writing material with those guys. And so all I ever wanted to do was be in a studio. I wanted to live in a fucking studio. I wanted to have my own badass studio. And so there was this 3-year period, and then I discovered a band called Carnival. For those of you who don't know who, they're an Australian band. They're progressive rock. And I really, really became obsessed with them. And it changed the way I wrote my songs. I wanted to write intricate stuff. I wanted to write really, really detailed parts and progress as a musician and as a singer. And I think that really challenged the band. And I think that was the downfall of it. Not to say that those guys weren't talented enough to do it. And absolutely no offense, no disrespect at all. But I was jumping levels ahead. And I knew that it would take work. And I spent hours and hours and hours and days and months in that studio, in any place I could record or write, coming up with riffs, coming up with songs. And it challenged Brendan as a drummer. And I think Bub kind of flowed with it, and he seen where it was going, but then him and Brendan had some stuff going on that was personal, and everybody started bringing their issues into the studio as opposed to leaving them outside of it. Or when you bring it in the studio, you bring it out through your writing and in your music, which is what I always tried to do. And then outside of the studio, I let my ego get in the way. I let my ego start destroying relationships and fucking up things that they never should have. And there was a lot of my fault. And I look back on it today and regret some of it, but not all of it. I remember the conversation I had when I knew that Art of Failure was done. Basically, I was with my best friend Scott, and at that time we were on like a road trip or something for his work, and I was coming back, and I remember being on the phone, and Bub called, and we got in an argument. And Bub and I never argued. We never really had like heated debates. And fuck, we had one that day. And I basically said, chalk it up, I'm done. I'm not ever playing again. And that was the mindset of all of us. We're done with music, blah, blah, blah. Of course, that wasn't true. But we knew the band was done. And I'm sad to see it now 11 years, because it was 2010 when that happened and it disbanded. So 11 years it's been since we've played music together. And I know Bob is really wanting to play. I'm hoping Brendan's I'm talking to both these guys still to this day. I don't know that they talk to each other much. I hope that they will eventually. I hope that we could do a reunion of some sort to get AOF back where it needs to be. Whether it's one single we put out and write together, one show, a one-off somewhere. I don't know. I hope something happens with Art of Failure. But a lot of it stemmed from my drug addictions and alcohol addictions and stuff like that I just let control me. I didn't care. I partied. It was all about sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's literally, I wanted to live that. And I knew if I didn't do it then, I would probably never do it the rest of my life. So it made me very happy and satisfied at that time. And I don't regret any of that. I mean, I lived it. I lived it up. I loved it. And it was a different time then. We didn't have, I mean, you go back and look at some of these videos, there's fucking actual cameras or flip phones. This is pre-smartphone days. Pre-Snapchat and Instagram and all that shit. This was right when YouTube was getting started. When we should have probably taken off then on YouTube, knowing what it would be today, oh my God. Could have made some fucking serious bank probably, but we didn't. And I don't know. That's a short story of Art of Failure. I'm going to keep this video somewhat short. Upload it to YouTube. Just give an insight. I know these things can be boring, long, drug out. You probably don't listen, but some people do. Some people like the long shit, like me. I do. I love podcasts. I just wanted to tell the story of that. I don't know how much I really got into I keep looking at the timer. I'm like, oh, it's dragging out. It's dragging out. But maybe I'll try another one and talk about something else a little more detailed. But I don't know. Hope you guys enjoyed the story. It's the story of Art of Failure, AOF, a band I used to be in that I helped create. I miss those guys. Hope you're doing well. I know I'll still talk to you, but I don't know. We'll see what happens in the next few whatever videos I come up with. Time to play some music.